Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Surge with some new card reveals for Cardfight Vanguard. Let's talk about them. We also have the stuff from the presentation stream. We'll talk about that after we go through the Frieren Rideline. So let's get into it. There's a lot of cards to go over, so we're just going to be using Freedom Duo and like correcting in our speech the things that aren't quite correct. So let's get into it. So first up, of course, the starter, starter's Himmel. Then we have the Rideline Grade 1, which is another Himmel. The fact that it's a Himmel name does actually matter significantly. We'll get into that. So when it's wrote on top of the Grade 0 Himmel, you can reveal a Frieren Grade 3 from your ride deck. And specifically Frieren name, not the Frieren race that they all have to denote them as part of the collab. And you get to put the deck's set order token into the order zone. So let's go look at that real quick. That is a fun, insignificant journey. So when it's in your order zone, you can no longer play put into your order zone cards other than this and other Grimoire cards. You can still use normal orders and blitz orders, but only the deck's specific set orders can be put into your order zone from then on. It has two autos, both once per turn. The first is when it's placed into the order zone, or when you put a Frieren Beyond Journey's End card onto your Vanguard circle. You get to search your deck for a Grimoire card from your deck or drop and put it into the order zone, shuffle your deck. And then the second is basically the same effect, except it's when you put a normal unit from the collab onto your rearguard circle. We'll get into this. There are 8 Grimoires that are all locked to 1 copy in deck. The way the deck functions, you want to get 7 onto your board by time you end your main phase on turn 3. So how this maths out is turn 1, you are going to want to call a rear so that you can trigger that second effect so that you get 2 into play, and then you play another 2 on what you are effectively guaranteed to get is 2 on turn 1 with these effects, then 2 on turn 2 by riding up and calling another rear, then 2 on turn 3 by riding up again and calling another rear. Of course, you can also play, so that gets us a 6. We want 7. So you can also play them from hand. We will be talking about all of them, but they all have the condition that you have to have a Frieren named Vanguard, and they cost Energy Blast 2 to play out of hand. So that means on turn 1, because your Vanguard has the Himmel name and does not have Frieren in its name, you will not be able to play one out of hand, but on turn 2 you will be able to start playing them out of hand, and thus if you play one out of hand on turn 2 and turn 3, you will be able to get all 8 into play. And like when you have 8 copies of these things, it's not too hard of an ask to draw into 1 or 2 of them for your turn 2 or 3. So yeah. Let's get into the Grimoires. So they all have pretty minor effects. The reason for that is because all of these on-place effects are things you're going to be able to reactivate with your Grade 3 Vanguard. So let's talk about them. They all have an Energy Blast 2 cost to play, of course, but if you're putting them into the order zone using the set order token, then you get to ignore that. So this first one does have a mistranslation on Freedom Duo. So when this is placed into your order zone, you choose a card from your hand to discard. If you did, you get to choose a Grade 2 or lower non-Sentinel normal unit or a non-Regalis Beast order card from your drop and put it into your hand. So this is really good recursion to just have access to, especially because as like we'll get into, like, you're going to be able to reliably reactivate that every turn if you want to. And the second one is when it's placed into your order zone, you choose and heal 1 from your damage zone. And if you healed, you put the top card of your deck into your damage zone face down. If a face-up card was chosen for this effect, you place it face up instead. So despite the fact that you're not going to get anything out of this turn 1, I do think you want to play this one turn 1 every single time, because since these are all one-ofs, this is the only method we have of getting them out of the damage zone. So you want to have this in play and not have to worry about going into the damage zone, so that once you hit grade 3, you can then reuse this effect to get any copies out of your damage zone that you need to. Then we have spells to make shaved ice, golem magic, and spell to make sweet grapes. The sour grapes are the other two. So spell to make shaved ice is you just draw a card when it's placed into the order zone. Pretty nice. Spell to remove rust from a bronze statue when it's placed into the order zone. Oh, this is also just super mistranslated. This is super important. So you choose a you choose a circle, right? This is the one that unlocks, right? Or is that later? Let me pull it up elsewhere to be sure about this. Yes, okay. So when this one is put into your order zone, you choose a card on your circle, you turn it face up, and you stand it. So this is the most niche effect of all of them, but it means that like if you're against Artisaria or against a storage deck with stun effects, you just don't have to care about that stuff at all, because you can just undo the unlock, undo the stun, super easy. And that is something that is going to become more prevalent, the stun part particularly, because, for example, we'll be talking about when we get into the presentation, but we have new Skyride decks confirmed, and one of them is Deep Lands. The Deep Lands is the archetype that the Storage Teeth Vault is part of, and that Storage Teeth Vault has an effect that you're going to be able to very reliably use in Deep Lands, which stuns an opponent's rear when it attacks, and also prevents it from intercepting. So that's just a nice little effect to have in the deck. So you just don't have to worry about that stuff at all. Then we have this is one of the most powerful ones, to be honest. Spell for finding lost accessories. When it's put into the order zone, you choose a trigger unit that is not a heal or over trigger from your drop, and you put it back to your deck and shuffle your deck. So you're just putting back from turn 2 onwards, basically. You're going to be able to just put back a trigger every single turn. Then spell to produce a field of flowers. When it's put into the order zone, you call a plant token. Do want to note real quick, the deck is coming out with a new plant token. If you are curious, know that plant token does not have the Frieren trait. That would matter, of course, because like if it had the Frieren race trait, you would be able to go, okay, play out my token order, get out this set order, spawn a plant token, which then procs the token order's second effect to get out another. But no, you cannot do that. Then we have spell to identify treasure chest. When it's put into the order zone, you look top card of your deck and put it back to top or bottom. Scry effect, also very powerful. I think the two that you always want to be doing on turn 2 is you want to do the scry and you want to do the return a trigger, if you have a trigger to put back at least. Because those two effects are very powerful, and being able to get those every single turn from turn 2 onwards is super good. Super strong. And then for the last one, when put into the order zone, you can choose a card from your drop zone, put into your soul. There are some pretty heavy soul costs in this deck, so this is something that you may end up using more often than you might expect, but it's just some nice like soul gain for when you might need it. This is another one of the less impactful ones. So that is all of the grimoires. As you can see, all these effects are pretty minor, but some of those minor effects are very impactful. Like a draw one is very nice. A discard 1 to get back any of your grade 2 or lowers is very, very good. And the ability to just scry and put back triggers every turn from turn 2 onwards is very powerful. Yeah, that stuff is very, very good. Okay, so continuing on with the ride line, the grade 2, Himmel and Frieren. So we now have Frieren in the Vanguard's card name, which means, as mentioned, from this turn onwards, we can start playing the set orders out of hand, so we can get our 7th into play on this turn, and get a 3rd order effect if we want. So when it's rode upon by the grade 3 Frieren, you're going to get to look at top 7, reveal up to 1 normal unit with the Collab race to your hand, and shuffle your deck. You may notice this deck has a lot of deck thin. We're going to be pulling like 6 orders out of the deck. This is another piece that deck thins, and there's going to be some familiar faces in here as well as the ability to just like put back a trigger every turn from turn 2, and also the scry to make us more likely to hit triggers on our drive checks, which is very, very good stuff. So from there, we go to the grade 3 Frieren, and now we can see the big payoff for this. So Frieren has 2 effects. Her first effect is an act counterblast 1. You activate all of the following based on the number of grimoires you have in your order zone. This is why you want to hit 7 for turn 3. So if you have 3 or more, you draw a card. If you have 5 or more, this unit gets red text. All units in your front row get power plus 5,000, and 7 or more during this turn, this unit gets drive plus 1. So by getting to 7, you get plus 2 off this effect by the draw 1 and the drive plus 1, and you also get power to your front row. And then its second effect is another act, also once per turn. You pay any number of energy, and then for each energy you spent, you get to choose a grimoire in your order zone. If all of the grimoires you chose had different names, so you can't use multiples of a single grimoire, you get to activate all of their auto abilities. Super, super good. Like, it's a super cool effect too, because we like when we have energy costs attached to like essential things that the Vanguard needs to be doing. In most Vanguard decks, it's like, oh, you're just prescribed a like 2 to 4 energy costs you must always do to keep the deck going. But this is like very scalable, and because there's 8 different ones, like you have a lot of like freedom in like mixing and matching what specific things you want for the current scenario. Just very, very cool. I like the design of this effect a lot. It's super cool. I think the ones that you absolutely always want to be doing are the scry and the put a trigger back, because those are just so powerful, especially when this is already a 3 drive Vanguard swing. But yeah, this is just a very, very cool effect. And of course, there are a couple of the orders that like are pretty niche that you're not really going to want to use in most scenarios. I think the ones that you are generally going to be getting to use are the draw run, the scry, the put a trigger back, and the discard a card to get a card back. Those are all very, very powerful. Very, very useful to keeping your engine going. So yeah. There's one last card I want to get into before we get into any of the rears, which is the deck has a normal order. And a lot of the cards are going to require you to have played a normal order. You can play other Keter normal orders, but this is probably going to be the main one you're going to end up playing. So you can play other. It's important to note that. Actually, no. Never mind. Yeah, never mind. Okay. I was gonna say something about opponents Vanguard being grade 3. Actually, let me double check the text on this, because Freedom Duo has gotten things wrong before. Okay, yeah, he just missed this. Okay, so you have to have a Frieren named Vanguard to play this. It's grade 3, and your opponent also has to be grade 3 or greater. Freedom Duo just missed that part, and it costs EV2. So this is you ideally, once your opponent's on grade 3, you do want to be playing this every turn, which limits how much energy you can spend on the reactivations. But there are ways to get more energy in this deck. And if we're playing an order from hand on turn 2, we'll go into turn 3 with 4 energy available, so we'll be able to do 2 reactivations. If we go second, actually no, we won't be using this on the initial turn 3 if we go first. So we'll go into the turn. Assume we have to use 1 order from the hand, so that's going to cost EB2. On either turn 2 or 3, we're going to have to do that. So then we'll go into that turn with 4 energy available to use on the reactivation effects. And then on the next turn, if we spend the full 4 on that, we will only have 1 reactivation. But there are other ways to get energy in this deck, as I said, so we'll have ways to deal with that. And yeah. Okay, so you EB2, you choose a column and retire all of your opponent's rear guards in that column. Does not target, so this gets away around stuff like variance rate, which is very nice. And then you choose one of your vanguards, and it gets red text. All units in your front row get power plus 5k. So in combination with Frieren's own effect, this is going to be giving plus 10k to your front row. Very nice. And it also gives your vanguard critical +1. So in addition to being 3 drive, and scrying 1 and putting a trigger back, and also dectating like 10, you will also have crit +1 innately on your vanguard, which is very, very nice. Very good combination of effects. Okay, so let's get into the rears at long last. So we have Fern, the Fern rear for this deck. It gets the following effects if you have a Vanguard with the Frieren race. So you're still going to be able to use this effect in the Fern and Stark ride lines that are going to be revealed later. When it's placed on rearguard circle, you can either Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. And when it attacks and your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, during this battle, it gets power plus 5k. However, if you play a normal order, it gets power plus 10k. So its ranks 20k, 30k with the buffs that's going to be getting from the normal order and from Frieren herself. 38 with a boost, which is pretty good numbers to be hitting even before Persona Ride. With Persona Ride, it's going to be 48. For the on place, you're almost certainly going to want to be using the Counterblast cost primarily. It's a way for you to use excess Counterblasts you come into, because you don't want to spend 3 energy on this, but you could be saving that 3 energy for Grimoire reactivations. The Grimoire reactivations just feel really, really valuable. Yeah. Then we have, this is real cool. This Frieren grade 2 is just a Teeth Fault. It's just Teeth Fault. It's treated as Teeth Fault. And it has all of Teeth Fault's effects. Except it has the Frieren race. So you can get it off your ride line grade 2. And stuff like that. Which is and it triggers your token orders effect to get out a set order. Very, very nice stuff. Then we have Stark. You might notice we haven't gotten a way to multi-attack yet. This is the way to do that. So he gets all of his effects as long as you have a Vanguard with the Frieren race. Continuous on rear or guardian. If your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets power plus 5k, shield plus 5k. In the drop, when you play a normal order and you don't have a rear with this card's name, you get to call this card to rearguard. And then after its attack, if that was the first attack of the battle phase and you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, actually I believe that's incorrect again. No, that's correct. That's correct. I thought this was opponent's Vanguard grade 3 or greater. It can Soul Blast 2 to restand. So this is actually, on reread of this, this is a reason why you would want to run a normal order from outside in other parts of Keter, because this effect is usable on turn 3. But if you're only using the Frieren normal order, you won't be able to use that until your opponent's on grade 3 as well. And you'd like to have the 4th attack, but I'm not sure that's worth it. You already have to run a lot of normal orders. Orders in general. You already have to run a lot of orders in this deck. So I'm not quite sure that's worth doing. But only being 3 attacks is not the greatest thing in the world. But you get 3 drives even going first. So it's maybe not so bad. I don't know. That's one of the things that will definitely have to be worked out with this deck. Then we have a grade 1 Frieren. So gets its effect if you have a Vanguard with the Frieren race. When it's placed on rear, you look top 5. Add a normal order with the Frieren race to your hand. If you added, you can counterblast 1, or you can put a card from your hand into your soul. That's a very nice dig effect. I hope to see that kind of costing on these sort of like dig effects that aren't super likely to hit in the future, because paying at after you add the card is really nice. And the fact that you can choose between the counterblast cost or the put a card from hand into soul cost is also super, super nice. And also, when your other rear in the same column as this unit attacks without being boosted, it gets power plus 5k. So this is, in essence, a 13k booster for Stark specifically, but works in such a way where you can give the you can give the plus 5k power bump to Stark on his first attack, and then save the boost for the second attack. So Stark is going to be able to go 25, 30 on that first swing, which is high enough to demand either a front or a 2-card guard. And then on the second swing is going to be able to swing for what, 33? Yeah, 33 plus any triggers that you're able to pass to it. Very, very nice stuff. And then the last rear guard is Sign. So Sign is has all its effects if you have a Frieren race Vanguard. When it's placed on rear, you can soul charge 1. Optional, very importantly, because it's a blind soul charge. And it can also shove itself into soul to energy charge 3. So this is the way that we can get extra energy in the deck. This card feels very, very important because having more energy to play with is very powerful in this deck. There's a lot of really strong stuff you can do with that. A lot of card advantage you can generate, or guaranteed boards you can set up. By soul blasting this out, you can just get this back with the effect of the Grimoire that adds back a grade 2 or lower. The grade 2 that Grimoire you're probably going to be largely using to ensure that you have the crit gain order online, which is neat, which is good consistency to have in this sort of deck, of course. But if you already have it, then you can go, okay, I'm going to get back Scene, and I'm going to put it onto the field and throw it into Soul and get some more energy to play with. Or you can leave it on the field for a turn if you're against a deck that doesn't have a bunch of retire, and then when it comes back around to your turn, you can throw it into Soul to get some more energy to play with. Lots of stuff you can do there. I really like how flexible this deck is with how it uses its energy, how malleable it is. It's super, super cool. It's a very good use of the energy mechanic. I quite like what they're doing with this one. And it's only 4 attacks. Something I'm thinking about is I feel like you really want high consistency on finding the normal order. But being able to use Teeth Fault on turn 2 is also very powerful, especially since that can also be used on your turn 3 going first to turn on Stark. So maybe you do use Wisdom, maybe a split of Wisdom and the Frieren normal order, like a 3-2 split maybe. That does make grade 1 Frieren quite a bit worse because it can only add normal orders with the Frieren race. I don't know. The other Frieren rear guards are pretty generic. So I would not be surprised at all if we saw other normal orders for the collab in the other Rideline reveals. So this might be something that's a wait and see on. Maybe we end up running Wisdom, or maybe we end up splashing in a normal order from one of the other decks. if it's not like hard locked to a Frieren or Stark Vanguard. We'll just have to see on that. Yeah, that's it for Frieren. I actually quite like how this deck plays. This deck seems really, really cool. And it's definitely a Teach Aragon deck because you want to be using normal orders. So those cards are just going to always be online, and you can really easily reuse them if you're in a scenario where you already have a normal order, so you don't need to re-trigger them. Get it back with the Grimoire that retrieves stuff. You can use that instead to get a Teeth Vault for board building, or get a Saragon to just reactivate that effect. You know, that thing that got choice restricted in Luard and Reziel. That's a pretty good thing for the deck to be able to do. So yeah, this deck seems quite neat. Its biggest weakness is of course the fact that it only has 4 attacks. But every other thing that the deck is doing is very strong. Very, very good stuff. Like lots of filter. Probably going to be hitting a lot of triggers, like with the ability to put them back. I think that order trigger specific? Was that Grimoire trigger specific? Toiga unit. Yeah. Okay. You have to put back a trigger unit specifically. So you can't use this to put back perfect cards. So yeah, you're just going to be putting back a trigger every turn. Yeah. I feel like the flow you want to be going for with this deck is, as I said, you want to put the damage zone retrieval one, Golem Magic, into play on turn 1, so you don't have to worry about if you have the you just don't have to worry about having access to this card for when you get to Great Frieren, so you can ensure any that go into your damage zone in the early game, you're able to get into the drop and then put into play with the set order. And then turn 2, then turn the other one you put, what other one would you put into play turn 1? You could put the Scry or put a trigger back one. Ones into play at that early stage, but like I feel like the plant token one is also pretty valuable at that stage, especially if you go second, because you can go like you have to call rear to trigger the second effect of the order token. So you want that, but then you can put like a plant token in front of it, so that you can get an easy column that way. That seems like a very solid way to get some early aggression going on. And you can also put the plant token behind your Vanguard if you want, so that your Vanguard can't be blocked by just a 15k shield. And then, like as I said, turn 2, I think you put into play the put back triggers one, and you put into play the one that scries one, so that you can take advantage of that on your turn 2 when you're able to like do potential Teeth Fall and Saragon pushes as well on that turn. You can put Stark on the board as like just something that you can freely intercept away, and you'll get back for free later in the game, so you don't care if your opponent retires it. And then turn 3, you probably put into you put into play like whatever's left. Like you put into play the draw one at that stage. You can draw 2 off of that over the course of the turn because you put into play draw a card. Then you reactivate it with the Frieren effect. Yeah, like this stuff seems very, very potent. This deck has left a very good impression on me. This seems very solid. Then we have the presentation. A lot of other non-Vanguard stuff. Let's get down to the Vanguard. Okay, so we have the ban list. So the ban list was I was expecting for this ban list we were either going to see a hit to Bav and nothing else, or we were going to see minor hits to Verg, Minerva, and Nuru, as well as a more significant hit to Bav. It was just a hit to Bav. It's a hit to Trick Moon. Trick Moon is down to 1 copy now. This takes away a lot of the power of the deck, because you can no longer develop these 25k boosters alongside your Varelord. It also makes like counter charge a lot harder to come by in the deck. You have to be much careful with your Trick Moon into the Vergilla matchup, because if you leave Trick Moon on the field, they're just going to bind it, and you're just going to lose complete access to counter charging, and your 25k boost as well as your Varelords for the rest of the game. If you want to get access to Varelord consistently, that's something that you can very easily do, because Ars is about to come out. And Conch Shoddy can discard Arse to find talismans, as well as your Rideline discards, of course. So you can very easily use that to find your Trick Moon and then find your Varelord and then get into them. And that gives you some extra soul to play with as well. But there's also the possibility of just going, okay, I'll just see them when I see them, and I'll go, okay, I'm going to use Dashida. That can help me find them. But more importantly, Dashida's plus 10k power feels a lot more impactful now that you don't have the Trick Moon boosts. And you probably use that Restanding Shenri. That Restanding Shenri, Summer Padra, I think it's called, was not seeing a ton of play before, but now seems much more important. But like importantly, what made Bav like really strong, especially after the Varelord hits, was that it was a deck with a lot of longevity that plays the long game extremely well. If it is allowed to stabilize with low enough damage, like it is just going to win the long game every single time. And this does not really like change that. It just means that the higher power outputs are thus available, and it doesn't have as easy access to counter charge. Which are like, those are still significant hits, but they're not hits that are going to like take Bav out of contention as a meta deck, which I think is the correct thing to be doing. I think like of all the best decks and formats we've had since I came, like, I'm thinking all the way back to like Gandiva, because that's when I started paying attention to the game again. Like, this is one of the, Bav has felt like one of the most healthy best decks in format we've had in a long time. Basically as long as I've been playing D. And I wouldn't want to see the deck just straight up killed. It's a cool deck. It does cool stuff. I like the stuff it does. The early game trade-offs the deck naturally has are worthy trade-off for what it is doing, I think. Ever since Varelord went to 1. I think it needed like a bit of a debuff compared to Vergilla, Minerva, and Nuru. And I like where the format is now that we have that. Starkna and Charmnet are both back to 4 copies. So those decks are at full power. I don't think they're going to perform particularly well, though. Gandiva has to play so many shieldless cards. And Charmnet coming back to 4 really does not change that Leverdress has a big weakness into decks that like just constantly wipe like its entire board. Reconstructing the entire board against Bav and Vergilla is a tall order, especially against Vergilla, which is binding your stuff. So you need to find like extra copies of like Foxhole and stuff, which is not super great to have to do. And like I see a lot of people going, why wasn't Vergilla hit? And it's like, I don't understand why Vergilla would need to be hit and not like Luru and Minerva. Like a Banlist that hits Vergilla should probably also be hitting those 2 decks as well, because they're very similar in power level. And like, I'm not always a huge fan of Bushiroad's extremely data focused mindset, but if you look at the explanations of the Banlist updates, so like they mention, as always, they go over like what decks have high usage and what decks have high win rates. So for high usage, they mentioned Bavsarga and Vergilla. And people zeroed in on that. Well, why did Vergilla not get hit when Bavsarga got hit? Well, they also talk about how Bavsarga had by far the highest win rate. However, below it, with other high win rates, were Vergilla, Minerva, and Heart Luru. But Vergilla was on the high usage rate list of decks as well. And Minerva and Nuru aren't. They aren't quite at that tier of usage that Bav and Verga are at, which means that Vergilla's usage rate, Vergilla's conversion rate, is significantly worse than Minerva's and Luru's, as well as Bav Zarga's. So it makes a ton of sense that they wouldn't actually hit it. I know we had the single WGP where the top 4 was only Bav and Vergilla, but there were plenty of Minerva and Nuru in that top cut as well. I would also not be surprised to see Vase Ruger see a lot more play after these hits because it had a big weakness to Bav, and that weakness is just not as prominent anymore. So that's very, very nice. And yeah, I'm quite happy with this ban list. I really like where the format is right now. I don't really want the power level being brought down from where it is at the moment, because like the main thing setting aside the top decks from the decks below them is like good a lot of good like defensive engines, like the 20k shield you're getting every turn with Luru, the like 15k extra shields you get in Vergilla, Bav's shield, Face Ruger giving an extra plus 5k on all your mythages that you guard with, as well as the 30k effective blitz order. That's a bunch of like just cool defensive stability tools. And decks below them, I feel like are typically a lot more ignorant, don't have those sorts of tools. And I like Vanguard a lot better with those sorts of defensive tools in the best decks. So I don't really want the power level being brought down from there, because I like the decks at the top being the one being set apart by their defensive tools. By that being the reason. And like we have like especially with Bav's power level brought down just a bit more needed, we have like a field of like 4 or 5 meta decks. Like I really don't think we're in a format that needed more drastic hits. I really don't think we're in that sort of scenario. I'm a bit worried about Leonord going into the next set, because I really don't like Rosarium Fairy. I really don't like what that card enables. It's really, really obnoxious. But I think where we are right now is like perfectly all right. At this exact moment in DZ-10. There are some Deer Days news. Ooh, new sets. There's no Vintage Fight news. What the hell? Here, of course, is the confirmation that there will also be a Fern and Stark deck for the Frieren Collab. Then we have an encounter unit announced for the upcoming Miracle set. It is Costume Idol Alk. And then here's the big news. DZ-12 DZ-12 is a Skyride focus set with the Soul Castle deck that Suina plays, and the Deep Lands deck that Riru plays. So for those unfamiliar, Ophilia comes from Suina's deck, and the Stroicha Mythish, that is a Deep Lands archetype itself, which it's going to be able to be recorded very, very easily in that deck. That is a Stroicha deck. These two decks are very cool. I will probably make a video in the near future going over like what we know about these from the manga. If I went over all of that, we would be here forever. But to give like a very quick rundown, Suina is a deck that is very soul focused. It has a mate unit of its own, similar to Ezreal, that is 10k power and 20k shield. And it has a normal order it can use to call your board out of soul. I believe it calls 2 rears. And it has a blitz order that can call one thing out of soul to Guardian Circle, and also gives the attack unit plus 10k shield, plus 10k power. Or gives the call out unit plus 10k shield. It could be either. It's not super clear. As a crit gaining rear guard once you hit 15 soul, and the Vanguard can counterblast 1 on attack to shove 2 cards from your field into soul and call out 2 more. So it's getting 5 attacks. It has some cool defensive stuff with the 20k shield mate unit. Yeah, it's very cool. I'm very excited for this deck. Cool toolbox stuff, cool defensive stuff. My jam. Also my jam is this Doracia deck. The basics of this is a very big drop toolbox deck, like very traditional Granblue without like all of the order alchemagic stuff mucking it up that Zorga has. Which makes me very excited for that because I'm a huge Granblue fan. I love Granblue as a deck. It was like one of my main decks throughout like all of OG Vanguard and G era. And this is just pure that. It also has like a effectively restanding Vanguard. You ride the other form of the Vanguard from the drop zone after attacking and call the base form out as a rear with plus 10k. And the re-road Vanguard keeps the trigger effects of the original Vanguard got assigned to it, which is very powerful. Like completely eschews the main weakness that that sort of Vanguard restanding typically has. The order card the deck has is extremely powerful. You play it from drop and retire a card of the archetype to call out 2 more of the archetype from the drop zone, and it gives you, the player, red text that gives every unit that every card that is placed from the drop zone plus 5k for the turn. Just very, very strong stuff. I'm very excited for this deck. Very, very excited for this deck. I'm definitely going to be building both of these. Also exciting is that, wow, we figured out how to do vanity rarities again. These are just buddy fight SPs. These are just buddy fight SPs. These look very, very nice. I really hope they don't have to frame this stuff going on. They're just very, very good arts. I really like these a lot. Lastly, we have a couple cards today to go over. So let's we're already almost like, yeah, we're already past a half hour, so we're going to go over these real fast. So this is the Keter clone of the double rare cycle. We're getting this set. Its condition for the plus 5k power is 3 or more rears have entered this turn. I don't know why every single one after the Dark States one has had such a difficult condition. Like, there's a stringent condition for this mode. Then we have 2 sorceress support cards. The first is when it's placed from rear, you counterblast 1, call it the other from drop to another rear in the same column. When it's boosted by that grade 1 and your opponent's grade 3 or greater, it gets power plus 5k. And when this boosts the grade 2, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, is that? Yeah, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, it gives plus 5k. And then if your Vanguard is a sorceress, you can just look at the top card of your deck and put it on top or into your soul. Cool stuff, cool stuff. This seems extremely underpowered for the current moment. But I guess the sorceress support wave is low rarity unless we have a secret double rare sorceress support card coming later. Like K and Bedivere is not extremely good. I don't know why these would be very good. Like, I don't understand. Like, the fact that this needs to pull from drop is so bad. Like, this should really be pulling from deck or drop. Like, deck or drop would be ideal. It would probably not be fantastic, but at least like that would be like, oh, I just get this 28k column. I only need to run like 1 or 2 of the grade 1, and you get a scry out of it. Like, that would be like decent. But as is, I don't see this being good enough. And then we have some lyrical cards. We have the lyrical from this cycle. Its condition for the plus 5k is when your unit is placed by a card ability this turn. That isn't too hard to achieve, especially since High Five is so commonly played at the moment. Like, High Five will just accomplish this on its own. So like that's probably fine. But it's probably difficult. It might be more difficult for certain lyrical decks to accomplish, which is annoying. Then we have a grade 3. This is a rare. When it attacks for this battle, it gets power plus 5k for every 2 cards in your damage zone. And if it got plus 5k or more power, it retires at the end of the turn. That seems like a pretty high cost for just getting plus 5k power, plus 10k. Like, Lyrical doesn't have a deck that can go up to 7 damage like Greedon can. So it's not like this can ever get to 15k or more, which is like the point at which like that retire would feel worth it at all. This is a weird one. Yeah, this is a throwaway. This is not good at all. And this is also really bad. This is also a rare. When placed on rear from hand, you soul blast one reveal card from your hand, and you choose a rear with the same name as the card revealed. It gets plus 5k for this turn. Like, it's a highly specific condition and a cost of soul for just a plus 5k. Like, really, really bad. Really bad. Not good at all. But that's going to be it. Oh god, I also had the first 10-minute section, so this is a 45-minute video. Okay. Alright. That's going to be it for me. This is Harris Shirt, signing off.